good morning and welcome to this week's issue of the Friday Club. I'm really excited today to be taking my break time with Dickinson of Jaradong International School, Brunei, and welcome so much and thank you for supporting us and talking to us today.
You're very welcome. I'm really looking forward to chatting to you.
Brilliant. So before we begin then, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, your school?
So I've been here in Brunei for 11 years and Jaradong International School is a British international school. We offer the IGCSE, the A-level and also the IB. At the moment we have 1,683 students from 55 nationalities, and that's we also have about 230 boarding students.
Brilliant. And how did you get into school marketing, Anne?
Through a sort of slightly convoluted route. You know, one of these people who sort of started off doing one thing. So I started off doing a pharmacology degree, decided this wasn't for me, spent 3 years doing all sorts of things, ended up in the hospitality industry, and my degree is business with hospitality focused. Now, after that, I then applied to HSBC and spent 10 years. I initially was on their graduate program for corporate banking and then spent 10 years with HSBC, and then itchy feet and being married to a teacher. Off we headed to Malaysia initially for 1 year, and that was 21 years ago. So 8 years in Malaysia at an international school there, which was my first experience of working in schools, and then followed by 2 years in Bangkok, and then I've had 11 years now in Brunei.
I think that's one of the really nice things about any career path in international schools is that quite a few people say they anticipated it being 2-3 years for them max, but then they've ended up staying for the rest of their career because they just love it so much.
Definitely. I think also because, you know, my husband's in the same school as me, which is make or break, I suppose, for some people. He's not going to watch this, is he? And our children were educated in the schools and had the privilege really of attending international schools before heading off to uni in the UK. So they're both in the UK now, and we're still, you know, overseas.
Brilliant. What type of students do you attract at Jaradong International School, Anne?
That's a really good question. Many international schools, I think, particularly in Asia now, are sort of 80–90% of the home country students, and really they're schools offering an international curriculum, and they're not really international schools. Jason, who was chatting to you last week, you know, he and I have sort of been on a few things together, marketing and admissions wise, and we're in a similar situation to him. I think he has a much tougher job than I do, but for us, about 40% of our students are from Brunei, and Brunei's quite an, if you don't mind me just diverting a little bit, so Brunei's a wonderful little country. It's on the north coast of Borneo. Lots of people still think it's by Dubai somewhere in the Middle East, but it's on the north coast of the island of Borneo, and it has about 420,000 people in, and it's part of the British Commonwealth, and there's a great affection between Bruneians and the UK. The Bruneians, you know, you can be doing your supermarket shopping and Bruneian will say hello to you, and then they'll say, where are you from? And if you say UK, they'll say, oh, you know, I studied in the UK, or they'll tell you their connection with the UK, because they absolutely love the UK. There's a really a real affection from Brunei to the UK, and so although the Malay language is the mother tongue, absolutely the mother tongue here in Brunei, most of the schools in Brunei, not just the international schools, also educate children through the medium of English. So it means that English is really well spoken here. And so I think that makes things very easy for, say, as compared to, say, my experience perhaps in Thailand, where we had Thai children applying to the international school. And of course, one of the first hurdles was to learn English. So here we have the Bruneians applying to the school, and they are bilingual, you know, they speak, they're as comfortable in Malay as they are in English.
Wonderful.
So that's really helpful for us, So about 40% of the school are from Brunei, and then we have 55 nationalities. So
Wow.
nationality, and you probably hit it, some really interesting nationalities here at the school as well. And I think that really is reflective of the fact that Brunei is very well known for being an oil and gas producing country.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that brings into it a whole range of people from different backgrounds.
Yeah, of course. So if a family were to come over to work in the oil and gas industry, Anne, how long would they typically stay in Brunei?
Usually 2 to 4 years. So Shell is the major one, the major employer for oil and gas here. And then there are also sort of refinery and other companies allied to the sort of core oil and gas industry. So that sort of brings into it a whole challenge. So just earlier on today, I was having a look at some of our figures, and typically, we have about 180 students in year 13. So the, graduating from the IB and the A-level year group. Now, in the course of a year, though, we will typically have between 320 and 420 students leaving. So of which 180 are those graduating students at the end of the academic year. So that's a huge challenge, because if you think that our school's 1,680, you're talking about 25% leaving every year. And of course, we have to get them back in again to make sure our numbers are maintained. So in terms of marketing, in terms of attracting new ones, there are other international schools here in Brunei. So I think we're quite spoilt in Brunei for that. But of course, we like to think we are the best, of course. So in terms of enrollments, every year, so this August, I've got over 250 new students starting. So it's quite a busy time at the moment. Yeah,
I can imagine.
And I think also not just joining, obviously in nursery at that level, we might have 35 or so children joining nursery, but the other key year groups for us are year 7. So that would be, I suppose, equivalent of prep in an English, traditional English system. And then we have also year 12. We have a lot of children who join us for their 6th form education, either to do A-levels or IB. And that's often because they're preparing, they'd like to go to university overseas. And so they join us at that point.
Wonderful. I think that's really interesting. I mean, we've spoken to a few speakers on the Friday Club who've talked to us about the fact that retention is actually a key marketing strategy for them. If they do a good job with the students and their families when they're in the early years in the primary school, they know that they can count on those students to be there all the way through until they finish their 6th form. And I guess that's not a strategy that can work if families are there for up to 4 years for you.
That's right. So some of our Bruneian families will be here longer, and we actually find that some of our parents will renew contracts to stay in Brunei simply because their children are so happy at the school.
Wow.
So that's been quite an interesting thing, having I had one of the diplomats even recently say, I won't identify which country, but saying recently that no one could understand why he kept renewing his diplomatic posting here. And basically it was because his children were so happy here at school, and he was very happy with their education here. And so people were like, don't you want to move to a different country and this sort of thing? And he's like, no, I'm staying here. And it was purely because of the school. So I think that is tremendous that sometimes happens. The other thing we really celebrate, because there's sort of two sides to the argument, because when you publish all your exam results, then sometimes people can say, yes, but those IB results, or those A-level results, they were only based on 2 years study. That child only joined you in year 12. How can you publish those IB and A-level results and claim the glory for yourself? So we always try to say, if students have joined us and have been with us, the full sort of 13 plus years of their education, then we try to sort of communicate about that because we want to say, look, you know, it's not just those who've joined us, and you know, yes, we are building on the foundation that other schools have input into those children's lives, but you know, but it's also we have had some children who've come all the way through and everything. But the school was established in 1997 by His Majesty and his brothers and the royal family, and really it was their vision that they felt that they wanted to have an international school here in Brunei. And so we're almost 25 years old, and the reason I mention it is we're now starting to get some of our alumni who are now bringing and enrolling their children in the school.
Wow.
And it's not quite retention, but it is a slightly different thing. And I just think that's wonderful, you know, when you see that, you know, those families joining us, and when they sort of walk into the admissions office and say, I was a student here, you know, so many years ago, and now I'm enrolling my children and want to restart that process. And I think that's really rather lovely.
Yeah, that is lovely, and a great accolade for the work of the school.
Definitely. Yeah.
So without the retention piece, it's, you know, it sounds like, you know, alumni are starting to enroll their children. Are there any other strategies that are really key for you, Anne, in terms of ensuring there are enough applicants and enough in the admissions funnel, I guess?
I think the key thing for us is still working with feeder schools within Brunei. So Shell have their own school here. There's also a large British garrison here, and they have their own primary school, junior school here. But of course, some of those children may be posted elsewhere before they graduate. So we may just get some of the armed forces personnel in for a year or two, something like that. But we do work very closely with the British Army, the British High Commission, and the other sort of armed forces related that we have here are the British government has I'm not quite sure the exact term for it, but they have a sort of a program whereby British personnel can be seconded to the Brunei Armed Forces. That could be Navy, Air Force or Army. And they will come and be here maybe for 2 to 4 years. And so there's those children as well. So I think that re-emphasises again the close relationship between Brunei and the UK, really. There's also a university here, which is literally just up the road from our school. And all the, I think all the courses are taught in the medium of English. So we get quite a lot of overseas lecturers who come. And so I make a point of, you know, as well as the sort of marketing outside the country generally, but I'm making sure that I'm working with those key employers and with relocation agents. I'm going to give away all my tips here. And then we have boarding, as I mentioned, and about 5 or 6 years ago, we also started full boarding. So that means that's brought in a new sort of group of children whose parents are outside the country, and so they're now with us and in our care as well. So that's a new group.
That's really interesting, isn't it? And do you think that promoting and publicising a boarding option brings nuances, different challenges for marketing a school?
Definitely. I think one of the big challenges was that people had no idea where Brunei was, and really didn't know much about Brunei. And as I said, being in a small country, actually, I have to say that one of the unique opportunities was that I was then able to work with Royal Brunei Airlines and also with the Brunei Tourist Board, because, you know, so it was almost like a sort of a team Brunei. So we set up summer programs, of course, pre-COVID. We set up summer programs and brought children in and families in, and so that they could visit and see how safe Brunei is, and also just see for themselves, you know, what the place is like. So we sort of all supported each other, you know, because if I was bringing in 20, 30, 40 children for a summer camp, then, you know, obviously I needed to let the airline know, because it's not, you know, to make sure they had enough flights, and they would assist with all those practical arrangements and everything like that as well. So
Brilliant.
quite different.
That's brilliant. And for a lot of your families who are local and working fairly locally, what is it that makes boarding such a compelling option for them?
I think we have quite long days, and so our weekly boarders tend to be an hour and a half, 2 hours away, which is not impossible, you know, to daily commute, but our day starts at 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
So if you're commuting daily, then you're going to be up about 5 o'clock to get here on time. And then we have 4 sort of long days. School finishes at 3, and then we do CCAs or co-curricular activities until about 5:15, 5:30. So if people are staying for those as well, and which is something we really encourage, then they're going to be home, you know, gone 7. And then if there's older children, of course, doing homework at that point then as well, that becomes quite an intense day. Friday is Brunei is a Muslim country, and Friday is the holy day. So we have a half day on Friday. We finish at 11:45, and the whole country closes from 12 till 2, which is the prayer time. And then in the afternoon, we reopen for, and we do things like performing arts, we do extra sports, things like that. So we do that on a Friday afternoon. And Saturday morning, we're building more of a program on a Saturday morning now as well, because a number of our parents will work Monday to Thursday and Saturday. They have a split weekend. So they have Friday and Sunday as their days off. So we're doing sort of more, I suppose, CCA type programs on a Saturday morning, which is brilliant for those boarders who are living here. But then also we have day students who live locally who will come along and join in with those as well. You know, so yeah.
Sounds
it's a really
brilliant.
interesting mishmash.
Really good. And has COVID impacted any of these activities for you in Brunei?
I almost feel a little guilty actually, because Brunei is celebrating over 400 days of COVID free.
Oh, wow.
So I was back in the UK in January 2020, meeting some of the British Armed Forces. And then shortly after I returned with our principal, so shortly after I returned, it became obvious that COVID was really something to be taken very seriously. And in March, I think the Brunei Ministry of Health, the Brunei government, were incredibly quick to act, and they immediately shut the border and they implemented a track and trace program. So I personally was contacted, you know, by the Ministry of Health because I'd been in touch with a parent who'd, one of our oil and gas parents, who had been diagnosed with COVID. And so I was phoned and, you know, please come straight away and be tested. Now, I didn't have COVID, but thankfully, but I had to be in isolation for a week, you know, and all of this sort of thing. And then they have a track and trace app. So wherever you go, you have to use your app to scan. But we had, I think our senior school only had about 3 weeks, because it was a week before or a week or two before the sort of Easter holiday. And then we had the Easter holiday, and then we had another week or so afterwards. And then, so they weren't really online, doing online learning for very long. Our junior school term 3 of the last academic year, they had that. But this academic year that's just finished, we've had no, thank God, we've had no online learning at all. And we've been incredibly fortunate. So people don't wear masks in Brunei, and there's an amazing vaccination program that's been rolled out. And so I'm fully vaccinated, and I think 25% of the population are now. So it is quite remarkable what they've done, you know, here, and how normal school feels, really.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think that will give a lot of people listening some hope who've, you know, some schools might have just come back off their second full year of online learning. So I hope that does give them some hope for the next academic year that we're going into.
I hope so too. And I think, you know, we're getting families now who are coming to us, coming from, you know, the UK or all over the world who
Mm.
have been experiencing complete, lockdown and, and virtual learning. And the children, they come here, they do 2 weeks quarantine, and within a few days of coming out of quarantine, they tend to come and visit the school.
Mhm.
And you can see this sort of like a deprogramming that's having to take place. And so I will always say to them, do you feel comfortable shaking my hand, or do you fist bump, or are you high fives or whatever? And you can see them stopping and thinking, I don't have to wear a mask, I'm safe, I'm okay, this sort of thing. And I think our sort of our pastoral team with the houses and our sort of school counsellors and that sort of the wellness side of our school are really doing an incredible job of helping those children, and particularly if they're also perhaps coming into boarding as well. So they might be coping with new country, new school, new boarding, may never have boarded before, and and suddenly not normality, which they've not had, so those sorts of things. So I think the whole team here are really doing everything they can to help those children to transition back into this environment. And perhaps also the children who are leaving, who have had normal school and are now heading back to the UK, and sort of to say to them, just be sensitive and remember that some of the children, some of your new friends will have had really difficult year, really tough year, and you've been very fortunate, and so there's both sides of that.
Yeah, it sounds like you're doing a great job. Sounds brilliant.
Part of a good team.
So one last topic, Anne, that I know lots of people who listen and interact with the Friday Club are all over is social media. And your Instagram account, JIS Brunei, for anybody who wants to follow, has over 9,000 followers. And I know that a lot of people will really be interested in hearing how you got to that and how your strategies evolved there.
Well, I think first of all, Brunei as a country, the population love social media and really engage with it. So that's sort of, something about Bruneians is they really love it. And I think also that really reflects what Bruneians are like. Bruneians are really friendly people, very warm people, very family oriented. And so, I think they see perhaps social media as almost like an extension of their family and, this sort of thing. So I think the whole being safe and cautious on social media is a big thing. And we do that within school a lot, about being safe online and being responsible online and things like that. I think also that to remember who's looking at your social media. So yes, it is prospective parents, but it's also, I know Jason last week was talking about touch points, and he was also talking about advocacy. So, if you think about that marketing funnel, and then once children are enrolled in the school, their families, I hope, will then become advocates within their companies, within their families, for the school. So we've noticed a lot of grandparents love seeing our Facebook and writing comments on Facebook, and very proud. So I think it's important to plan your social media. So I sat down with my colleague who sort of does all the practicalities of the social media for us. I sat down with her back in March, and we planned the summer, so we planned sort of 2 to 3 months in advance. We look at the school calendar, we have it side by side, and then that forms your skeleton, and then you've always got opportunity to slot in unexpected things that are happening. On top of that, Insta stories is brilliant for doing that, for example. But you've got your main sort of skeleton. And I think that planning your social media and what to put on your social media is really important, and to get the engagement, and it's not just about the likes, it's, numbers of visits to website, things like that as well, seeing where people are engaging with you from. So that's quite interesting. It's not just the you know, people within Brunei who are engaging with you. It's a more global audience, you know. So we also have a lot of fun. I think you can be a little bit more informal at times with social media, and I think you know, I also have 2 children, you know, in their 20s who go, "Mum, what were you thinking of when you did things like this?" You know, sort of, you know. So if I have any ideas, I try and sound them off a range of people, including our students. So we have, you know, we have a digital captain on our senior school council, and you know, this next year that role is going to be a bit more formalized, so I'm really looking forward to meeting with him regularly and getting the students' ideas and input as well as to you know, what we can do for social media and things.
That's brilliant, and it's really interesting and so lovely to hear you talk about your school. I think everybody listening will hear how passionate you are. Just before I let you go back to your day job then, can you tell us what your favourite thing is about working in an international school?
I think constant change, the fact that you never, you know, every day I think I'm coming to work and I'm going to get this done and this done and this done, and suddenly someone completely unexpected will cross your path or something like that. So yeah, you have to be very flexible.
Definitely, definitely. That's brilliant. And thank you so much for talking to us today. We really appreciate it, and super grateful for your support of the Friday Club and what we're trying to do here. Been an absolutely brilliant guest. So can't wait for this to go out and share with all of our subscribers.
Thank you so much, Sophie. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care, and we'll talk soon.
Bye-bye.